Hi, welcome back to the channel, and this is my third upload about society being out of control. And today we're going to look at a specific community called the LGBTQAI plus 2. You know who I'm talking about. Now, before we get started, I have members from the community in my family, and I came across some community members throughout my travels, and for the most part, they pretty cool and some are thorough. And as a matter of fact, when I was younger, we wanted to hang out with the gay guys, not because they were gay, but because of the direct connection to women. And they can be some of the most funniest and entertaining people on the planet. They are definitely wild. As of recently, I came across a post that informed me that you can't say the word gay, although the G in LGBTQ stands for gay. Now we have LGBTQIA plus with some additional stuff added to that. It's just too much at this point. This has got me all the way confused. Then we have this MAP community, which is capital M, capital A, capital P community, trying to associate themselves with the alphabet mafia, in which the LGBTQ community don't want to associate themselves with the MAP community. Which is understandable, because being associated with the community that has a special interest in children has nothing to do with identifying as a specific gender. But for the LGBTQIA community, their society is out of control. Me personally, if I call you ma'am instead of sir, don't get upset with me for not knowing your gender if I don't know you, or what you choose to identify as. It's just a simple case of mistaken identity. No issues with your preference. But here's where the problem comes in at, when the community starts targeting children.
For more on this, let's welcome in Brandon Strock, founder of the Walkaway campaign. Nan Hayworth is also with us in studio, so we're glad to have the table here to weigh in on this story. And Brandon, we'll go first to you. I think what Sean was pointing out is the fact that this happens year after year, right? We see major retailers come out with merchandise that supports Gay Pride Month. But you were talking about the children's items, the children's clothing, so baby onesies, maybe.
If you know anything about early childhood psychology, that children are attracted to bright colors. And any manufacturer of children products and focus groups knows this. And if the Pride collection in the children's department isn't enough, let's just take a look at this one particular mannequin that stands out to me in this group of mannequins. That someone proudly posed these mannequins to set up for display. And if you do a Google search and type this name in, this is who you will get. A transgender British designer whose slogan includes "Satan loves pronouns."
Your thoughts on what Target is doing here?
Yeah, I think it's completely over the top and inappropriate. And it's not just baby onesies, which, by the way, is creepy enough. But if you actually look in the section, there are things like Pride candy houses and candy-themed things like this. And I'm watching, I'm like, is this Hansel and Gretel? Are we literally trying to lure children in with candy to be a part of this ideology and this mind frame? This has nothing to do with Pride anymore. And it was bad enough, honestly, the last few years when Pride became all about corporatization and commoditizing our pride, or a civil rights movement from years ago. But now when we're at the point where we're literally trying to sort of lure children in with candy and toys and cute little onesies that tell them that they can change their gender, or that there's a gender spectrum, that they're neither male nor female. This is insanity. It has nothing to do with Pride or a civil rights movement anymore.
Rage! Is this a hold-up? It's a science experiment!
We do not need to be teaching this radical LGBT grooming agenda in schools.
Pause. In order for this sub-community to book this event at a school facility, this had to be approved by the school board, which means the Department of Education, in which I'm sure after the event there was a Q&A. What type of questions are grade schoolers are supposed to ask these type of entertainers? The thing about children in early development, they come home and they tell everything that they see. So once they get home, I guess the deprogramming starts on my end.
It's one thing if parents want to do that on their own time. That is a parent's right to do that, with some exceptions, of course. But to bring this in and bake this into a public school curriculum is wrong. And meanwhile, Chinese students are learning quantum physics, and we've got our students learning how to twerk from drag queens. It's not going to end well.
Let's take a minute and 20-second intermission.
Do you know who fought in the Civil War?
Who fought in the Civil War? Like from the president?
No, like who against who?
It was the Nazis versus Germany. No. Yes. No.
How many Kardashian sisters can you name?
Kendall Jenner, Kylie Jenner, Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, Kourtney Kardashian. Is that all? That's all.
Yeah, that's all of them for sure.
Smart.
Yeah, dude, you're a genius.
This young lady is only 2 generations ahead of that classroom we were just watching. And she will have kids at some point that's going to fall like a few years underneath the kids in that classroom. At what point did the education system stop thinking that education was important to Americans? If she came out of school not knowing anything at the age of 20, and the 2 generations under her is being introduced to drag queen twerking in that early stages of development, just take a good look at the direction we may be headed as a society.
This is grooming. This is ideological mind control. It's introducing this to a group of individuals, especially to young kids who have no business learning any of this sexually explicit material. This is not about being anti-gay, or as they incorrectly labeled Ron DeSantis' bill, don't say gay. This is about keeping this out of the classroom because it does not belong there. This is a grooming agenda. It is extreme. It is explicit. It does not belong in front of young children at their school. They should be learning reading, writing, and arithmetic, not this film.
Look closely. It says light binding effect for light binding. I'm glad they moved it to the back of the store because no kid should be seeing this.
I'm going to break this down as simply as I can because some people still seem to not be getting it, but children are completely unaffected by those swimming suits and those tags because, and this is very important, children can't read. And for the children that can read, they're not going to know the multisyllabic words that are on that tag.
Word of the day, moron, brought to you from dictionary.com. Moron definition and meaning: informal, a person who is notably stupid or lacking in good judgment. Well, let's use that word in a sentence. Moron, for those children that can't read, you know who can? Their parents, so they have a say-so and they're the ones purchasing the item. Like the woman reading to you on why she thinks this is unacceptable. 2, for the children that can read, they have parents that can further define what these words mean. You know who else can read? Target. They modified and reorganized their collection and start pushing that merchandise to the back of the store. And I'm pretty sure this guy has read a good old death threat novel or 2.
No child knows what tucking is, nor would they care. You can just say that's not for you. Or maybe it will be for them. That doesn't matter. They'll figure it out someday. But that's not a conversation that you need to be having in Target. Like, if a young boy picked up a box of tampons and was like, Mommy, Daddy, what is this? You could just say, oh, honey, that's not for you. And leave it at that. That's all you have to do. And I'm sure families do this already, but nobody's asking to hide the tampons because little boys don't use them. Like, whoa.
The tampon section is the most uninteresting section in any store that you walk into that sells tampons. I barely even see women in this section, let alone an entire family. No one even cares what's down the tampon aisle but women. I've never even seen a child accidentally walk down the tampon aisle because there's nothing going on down there. Then this moron says if the children don't know what the words mean, let them figure it out. Proceeded by what he thought was his most profound saying of the day by comparing tampons to little boys' clothing. If you're ever in a situation where adoption is a possibility, just keep in mind, there's people out here like him that would love to adopt your child.
This was never about protecting children. Conservatives just hate trans people. That's it.
Pride Month is disgusting and anyone who celebrates it is satanic. How do we know this is true? Well, it began in 1969 after a small riot erupted in a gay bar in New York. It was a powerful response to police brutality. LGBTQ individuals have faced discrimination, hate, and even death because of their sexual orientation. Growing up, I experienced fear and bullying simply because people labeled me gay based on my voice and mannerisms. I didn't even identify as gay, and everywhere that I went, I could feel the eyes of men staring at me with hatred. I didn't understand why so many people wanted to hurt me and criticize me. But you're just being dramatic, Samuel. No one would actually hurt you. Really. In October 1998, Matthew Shepard, a young gay man in his early 20s, was brutally attacked and left to die. He was approached by two men who offered him a ride home, but instead, they robbed him, pistol whipped, and tortured him. They tied him to a barbed wire fence, leaving him in near freezing temperatures. Shepard's face was covered in blood, only partially cleansed by his tears. This is day 4 of praying during Pride Month.
I thought you were going to give a few examples on why celebrating Pride Month is disgusting and satanic. Right after that statement, you started talking about how they were targeted by a group of men that didn't agree with their preference. Are you for the LGBTQ community or against it? I'm confused so far. Are you even still talking about the LGBT community, or are you talking about Jesus' crucifixion, your version? That's what it sounds like.
My goal is for Christians to better understand the LGBTQ community. Sadly, even I heard hurtful words from the pew, proclaiming that gays would burn in hell and that God hated them. But what did Jesus say? In John 8, we learn of a woman caught in adultery. Instead of condemning her or judging her, Jesus showed compassion and said, "Neither do I condemn you, go and sin no more."
So here's my chance to play devil's advocate. Jesus forgiving the woman because of her sexual promiscuity is the sin. That's something we can all agree on, right? She probably even knows she's sinning, but now it's a way of life for her, and she might feel her sexual morals are wrong with the help from the Real Housewives of Jerusalem constantly pressing up on the girl next door about her lifestyle. By this woman knowing that the public will shame her every chance they get, I'm pretty sure she regrets some of her life choices in which she may want to repent at some point. On the other hand, choosing a sexual preference is not, depending on who you talk to, a sin. The LGBT community doesn't think their way of life is sinful, so why would they ask for forgiveness? For what? They feel the way that they feel, and they are not asking for help to change how they feel, so Jesus' words wouldn't apply here. I'm still waiting for you to point out the satanic part of Pride Month.
Love, not hatred, is the key to addressing sin.
Why is love, not hatred, the key to addressing sin? So you believe this community is living in sin. Some may argue that the LGBTQ community may have a mental disorder. Another reason why Jesus' words wouldn't apply here. A mental disorder is not a sin. So what sin are you actually asking your followers to forgive the LGBT community for?
Take a brief moment after this video to pray. Ask God to fill the hearts of those who judge with compassion and empathy. Pray for LGBTQ individuals to find safety and acceptance in the loving embrace of the Father. May the church be a place of refuge and peace for those navigating their sexuality.
Being promiscuous is not the same as struggling with sexual identity. The LGBT community feel things are completely fine. Sounds like you're using your religion to justify how you feel. Their way of life is just frowned upon and considered wrong religiously and psychologically by many. And that's if you agree with either or party. I'm not sure what kind of message you're trying to convey here. It seemed to be a little all over the place. Now here's a question. Is being sinful the same as being wrong? As in, it's wrong and immoral to target children due to the sinful ways of man. As per video, I take a moment to put out a PSA. In this video, the speaker is actually addressing parents and children with disabilities, but I chopped the video up for it to apply to all children. But this also made me realize that when we speak of children, we speak of normal functioning children and not necessarily taking into account children with disabilities who are the most vulnerable throughout all of this nonsense.
Listen carefully.
You need to understand something that parents these days have long since forgot and are going to have to relearn again. Your grandparents knew this, but today's generation of parents doesn't seem to. And that is, you do not get to design your children. Nature would never have permitted that to happen. Evolution would not have allowed a generation of a species to be so influenced by the previous generation. It hasn't happened, and it doesn't happen, and it especially doesn't happen in children. You do not design your children. But this idea that if a little bit is good, a ton of it must be better is a uniquely North American perspective. Right? Believe me, the French don't look as kindly on their children as we do. Right? That's another story for another day. So, what we have learned in the last 20 years of research in neuroimaging, behavior genetics, developmental psychology, neuropsychology can be boiled down to this phrase. Your child is born with more than 400 psychological traits that will emerge as they mature, and they have nothing to do with you. The better view is that your child is a genetic mosaic of your extended family, which means this is a unique combination of the traits that run in your family line. I like the shepherd view. You are a shepherd. You don't design the sheep. The engineering view makes you responsible for everything. Everything that goes right and everything that goes wrong. This is why parents come to us with such guilt, more guilt than we've ever seen in prior generations. Because parents today believe that it's all about them and what they do. So I would rather that you stop thinking yourself as an engineer and step back and say, I am a shepherd to a unique individual. Shepherds are powerful people. They pick the pastures in which the sheep will graze and develop and grow. They determine whether they're appropriately nourished. They determine whether they're protected from harm. The environment is important, but it doesn't design the sheep. No shepherd is going to turn a sheep into a dog. Ain't going to happen, right? And yet that is what we see parents trying to do all the time, and especially parents of children with disabilities. As Judy Harris said in 1996, in the first book on this subject written for lay people, the book is called The Nurture Assumption. As she said, you had more to do with your child's life by where you chose to live than by anything you will ever do inside that home. Short of abuse, neglect, or malnutrition, the rest of it is just trivial variation. It's where you live. Why? Because out-of-home influences are more powerful in shaping the life course of your child than in-home influences are. And those out-of-home influences are peer groups, other adults, neighborhoods, resources, schools, and the larger community that you made available to this child. That is how you shape your child's life course. The second biggest influence is also out of your hands, and that's genetics. And you don't get to determine that.